In Venezuela, thousands rallied in Bolivar in support of presidential candidate for the Great Patriotic Pole, Nicolás Maduro. In Palestine, the World Health Organization warned about the presence of poliovirus in wastewater throughout the Gaza Strip. And in Bangladesh, over 100 people were killed during student protests since Monday. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the Telesur studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, the presidential candidate by the Great Patriotic Pole, Nicolás Maduro, was welcomed by the people of the Bolivar state, who expressed their support to his candidacy for next July 28th elections. Residents from the San Felix community staged a large march in support of the candidacy of the current Venezuelan president as he battles the blockade imposed by the United States and his European allies. Maduro thanked the people for their support to defeat the actions of the far right, and he promised to continue working for the well-being of the nation. President Maduro also condemned the intention by the far right of privatizing the country's companies and housing, as they tried it before when they took over the legislative power in 2015.
Do you want a cowardly president who comes to privatize all the companies of Guyana? Do you want a cowardly president who comes to destroy the great housing mission Venezuela? To privatize housing? They already tried it when they won the 2015 election. They forget. The only law they presented in 2016 was to take away the housing of the people and to destroy the great housing mission Venezuela. Who presented it? The hairy rat Julio Borges, Leopoldo Lopez, Capriles, Machado, the same political class as always, but the people on the street prevented it.
Likewise, the presidential candidate affirmed that thanks to Venezuela's relations with the BRICS, the country has been able to guarantee large foreign investments while respecting national sovereignty.
But the time has come to move on to active and courageous resistance, to the economic offensive, and thanks to the relations I have with the BRICS, investments and technology with capital from India, China and Russia have been signed and secured, respecting our sovereignty. With our socialist model, they have underestimated me greatly. They have underestimated us. But what is being accomplished is by God's grace.
The head of the Venezuela Nuestra campaign command, Jorge Rodriguez, called on the people to mobilize during the closing of the campaign of candidate Nicolás Maduro. During the press conference, the general coordinator of the Venezuela Nuestra campaign command, Jorge Rodriguez, highlighted the massive reception to the candidate Nicolás Maduro by the people of Coro. In this sense, Rodriguez announced that from last Friday until next Thursday, July 25th, they will carry out massive campaign closings in the 33 states of the country.
We have already gone with the candidate, President Nicolás Maduro, to more than 160 cities, towns, villages, hamlets, cities, route. Now we are going to the massive closings to the people taking the capitals, taking the main cities, in huge concentrations for the closings of the campaign, the candidate of the loyalty of the future of the homeland of the candidate Nicolás Maduro.
The head of the Venezuela Nuestra campaign command, Jorge Rodriguez, called on the Venezuelan people to take to the streets after the presidential elections of July 28th in defense of peace.
And after the election, all the millions who voted to elect Nicolás Maduro constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to the streets to defend the vote, to defend peace and enforce respect for the results emanating from the National Electoral Council.
Let's go now to Caracas with our special envoy Yunus Soner for more details as Venezuela enters the final stretch of the electoral campaign.
Hello, good afternoon from Caracas, Venezuela. The presidential campaign is approaching closely to its end. Today, Jorge Rodriguez, who is the general coordinator of our Venezuela campaign that supports the President Nicolás Maduro, has held a press conference. Rodriguez said they had visited more than 180 cities during the campaign together with the president, some of them by surprise, and had gathered thousands and thousands and thousands of people. He also announced they will continue the campaign, now having a closing in each of the 23 states of Venezuela. He additionally announced that on July 25, here in Caracas, there will be a huge meeting, let's say, conquest of Caracas, with millions of people attending to it, that will start at 10 o'clock in the morning and will last until 10 o'clock in the evening. So during the whole day, the Chavistas will take the streets of Caracas, said Rodriguez. He also reacted to calls of fraud by some oppositional politicians. He called them again to recognize the results as they are announced by the National Election Council, which is the only official institution that is allowed to announce any results regarding the elections. And he said they, on themselves, the Our Venezuela campaign of Nicolas Maduro, will first immediately recognize the results as they are announced by the National Election Council, will celebrate these, and he added they will defend these results on the streets with their lives if necessary on the evening of July 28th. We also asked Rodriguez about recent reports that said that the Wilson Center, a U.S. government-funded think tank, had presented a report beginning of July calling the institution to make a count on their own and, moreover, to announce results in the afternoon or in the evening prior to the National Election Council. And that report by the Wilson Center, written by a former presidential advisor at the White House, also called the international community to immediately publicly recognize these results that will be published by the opposition. Rodriguez responded the following. He said, stupidity is free. They are free to be stupid. They did this before. They did this with Juan Guaido, the president of one of the most powerful of countries in the world, has believed that thing, has believed this guy. He has spent millions of dollars to support him, and now where is he? Where are these $1 million? So if they want to do it again, they can do so. We, on the other side, we in Venezuela are experts to disarm disinformation and to fight against such campaigns, said Jorge Rodriguez, responsible of Nicolas Maduro's campaign. He again reiterated that they are ready to celebrate, to recognize, to celebrate, and to defend the victory. So the country is approaching the closing of the campaign, and Caracas on July 25 will witness a huge rally by the Chavistas that will display their mass support once again.
Venezuela's Attorney General's office is in possession of the testimony and several pieces of evidence that would point to strategic planning manager of 20 Venezuela, Magai Meda, as the mastermind behind the attack on two vehicles belonging to Maria Corina Machado. Local sources reported that a member of Meda's team is being held at the Bolivarian National Intelligence Service and confessed to having damaged the bodywork of the two 4-runner vans, cut the brake hoses, and emptied the crankcase that stores the engine oil. The man detained also said that he moved and spent the night in the home of a close friend of the opposition leader before committing the attack. Earlier, Machado had denounced the attack and, without providing any source of evidence, blamed current president candidate for the Great Patriotic Pole, Nicolas Maduro, for it. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at Telesur English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Colombia on Saturday, farmers are staging a demonstration through 11 departments in the country in support of the agrarian reform promoted by President Gustavo Petro. The Colombian president confirmed that mobilizations taking place in departments like Bolivar, Magdalena, Cesar, and Sucre, among others, will draw participants from 600 farmer organizations. By promoting an agrarian reform, the government is aligning with the demands of farmers who want changes and prosperity through social justice. The mobilization also has the support of the National Farmers Agenda, an organization that sees an agrarian reform as the basis to protect the rights of farmers and guarantee their access to land and resources. In Peru, demonstrations against Dina Boluarte's government increased after the accident that left more than 20 people dead. The General Confederation of Workers of Peru, together with other labor unions and political organizations, notified a national strike on Sunday as the beginning of a calendar of mobilizations that will intensify on July 27th and 29th. At the same time, the organizations demanded a government that is more open to dialogue and shows more sensitivity to the needs of the population. On the other hand, President Dina Boluarte urged citizens to call for a new national discussion to avoid violence and to promote a peaceful environment with peaceful solutions. In Palestine, the World Health Organization warned about the presence of poliovirus in wastewater throughout the Gaza Strip. According to the international agency, the virus is present in sewage samples collected in June from 6 different locations of Han Yunis and Deir al-Balah. The World Health Organization is working with the local health authorities, the United Nations Children's Fund, and the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees to assess the extent of the spread. This work will help determine the measures needed to stop any further outbreaks, including immediate vaccination campaigns. Israeli occupation forces committed 4 new massacres against Palestinian families in the Gaza Strip during the last 24 hours. Health authorities reported at least 37 people killed and 54 others wounded. Authorities warned that Tel Aviv forces prevent the entry of rescue teams in the attacked areas, hindering the care of the wounded and the recovery of the dead bodies. They also detailed that several corpses are trapped under the rubble or scattered on the roads due to the Israeli onslaught. According to official data, the number of Palestinians killed since October 2023 amounts to 38,919, while 89,622 people were wounded, mostly children and women. The Israeli army has carried out a series of deadly attacks across the Gaza Strip, leaving hundreds dead and wounded. In the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood in the north, 5 members of the same family were killed. In Jabalia, also in the north, 4 people were killed, 2 of whom were children. The brutal aggression with artillery and fighter jets also hit several families in central Gaza, especially in the Buresh and Nusayrat refugee camps, where several families were completely wiped out. Earlier, a person riding a bicycle was reportedly killed in Han Yunis, south of Gaza, in an absolutely random and disproportionate drone strike. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that the only way to stop Israel's genocide in Gaza is to implement the two-state solution. According to Guterres, Palestinians must have their own independent, democratic and sovereign state within the borders prior to the 1967 Six-Day War, in which Israel militarily occupied the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Guterres called on the parties to return to the negotiating table to resolve the conflict, in keeping with international law. The Secretary General said the United Nations Assembly has the duty of deciding how to move forward on the legal consequences arising from the ruling of International Court of Justice against Tel Aviv's policies and practices in the occupied Palestinian territories. On the other hand, the Slovenian Justice Ministry has welcomed the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories as illegal. In this regard, the Slovenian Justice Ministry has called on the United Nations and its member states to take effective measures to fully implement the court's interpretation of international law. This past week, the International Court of Justice ruled that Israel's settlements in Palestinian occupied territories are illegal and that Tel Aviv must stop the genocide as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in Yemen, authorities condemned an Israeli aggression against civilian targets, including the port of Hodeida and the power grid. The Yemeni Armed Forces spokesperson said they would respond to this attack and would continue to fight in support of the Palestinian people.
Israeli enemy launched a brutal attack on Hodeida Governorate, targeting the power station that supplies electricity to the coastal city of Al-Hodeida with several airstrikes. The attack also targeted Hodeida port and the fuel tanks, all of which are civilian targets. The Yemeni armed forces affirm that they will respond to this blatant aggression and will not hesitate to strike vital Israeli targets. They reiterate their previous statement declaring the occupied area of Jaffa, Tel Aviv as unsafe. The Yemeni armed forces, guided by their committed leadership and supported by the steadfast and resilient Yemeni people, will not cease their supportive operations for our brothers in Gaza, regardless of the consequences or outcomes.
We now have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Bangladesh, over 100 people were killed during student protests since Monday. The government announced a curfew, deployed security forces, and cut off a large part of the country's internet and telephone connections in an attempt to regain control of the country. Students protested in rejection of the current quota system, favoring a group of people who support the Prime Minister. Hospital sources confirmed that the death toll was 105. Among them are security agents and civilians. The UN High Commissioner condemned the repression in Dhaka. In Nigeria, the number of deaths from cholera has risen now to 103. At the same time, health authorities report at least 3,600 suspected cases. Nigerian health authorities announced that they are fighting a cholera outbreak that has spread rapidly in 34 states and the federal capital of the country. They call on the population to take the necessary hygiene measures. Authorities also confirm that the federal government is intensifying its efforts to improve water and sanitation conditions in the country. Finally, experts detail that there are enough vaccines to attend the population, although they warn that immunization against cholera is designed for specific risk groups and the effect of the vaccine diminishes at 3 years of application. In northwest China, at least 11 people have died after heavy rains in the region caused a bridge to collapse on Saturday. The events occurred in Jiangxi province after the partial collapse of the bridge of the highway in Sashui County. At about 8:40 a.m. on Friday local time, a sudden downpour caused severe flooding. Local authorities report that at 10 a.m. local time on Saturday, emergency crews had already rescued up to 5 vehicles that fell into the river after the bridge collapsed. Operations are still ongoing, and top priority has been given to rescue and assistance efforts. The Brazilian government reported that 96% of the fires in the Pantanal biome have been controlled or extinguished, but control teams are still mobilized in the area. The Ministry of Environment and Climate Change reported that 56% of the fires have been extinguished, while the remaining 40% are in the process of being controlled and 4% are still being fought. In the sense, the entity warned about the forecast of a heat wave with low humidity starting next weekend, increasing the risk of new fires. On Saturday, Tadej Pogacar won for a 5th time on this year's Tour de France, moving to the brink of a 3rd title with an incredible performance ahead of defending champion Jonas Vingegaard and Remco Evenepoel. With just Sunday's concluding time trial to come, 2-time champion Pogacar has a 5-minute 14-second lead over Vingegaard as he effectively made sure of becoming the first man in 26 years to capture the Giro d'Italia and Tour de France double in the same season. The day's action culminated on the tough Col de Guyol climb, where Evenepoel's quick-step team set the tempo and attacked Vingegaard in an attempt to take 2nd place overall. Instead, Evenepoel dropped around 53 seconds on the Dane, making it less likely the Belgian can claim second place after Sunday's time trial.
Before the tour, I would not believe it, and yeah, it's just out of this world actually, and yeah, I'm so happy, and I hope I can share this victory today with the teammates and tomorrow. He had some tough days now, and today he showed that it's not easy to crack, and that he's a real fighter. He gave everything today, and yeah, he did really good ride today, and was super strong.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.